I'd like to call our meeting of the Greensburg City Council to order. I invite you to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Terry?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just give you praise for another day. We give you praise for the rain, for the harvest that's coming in. We give you praise for life. And we just ask now, Lord, that you would be with these men and women as they do the work of the community, that you would guide and direct their every step, that you would give them wisdom and discernment, and Lord, that we would just act as we're serving you, walking with you, living for you all the days of our life. In Christ.
Amen. Thank you, Terry. All council members are present and we have a quorum. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Council? Then I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented in the packet.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. It seems so long ago, but just yesterday, that we had Memorial Weekend. What a great weekend in Greensburg. Classes got together, family got together. I want to personally thank Georgina Rodriguez and all her efforts. The Arts and Crafts Fair is very well attended from what I saw. I got down here early. People showed up early to set up their booths. I had several business people on Main Street say it's the best that they've had in a long time, revenue-wise. So it was, I think, very successful for everybody. And I think our big well manager is probably going to give a report later, so I won't talk about the grand opening. Council member reports.
Have nothing.
Anything? Ed, comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just a few. On Wednesday, May 23rd, just making council aware that we had closed on the sale of the airport property, and we've provided finances to Ms. Shirley Rice. On Wednesday, 5/23, the same day, we were represented in district court by an appearance by staff and our city attorney on an appeal of the Mr. Jackson case, in which the small claims court had ruled in favor of the city that we can in fact require residents to have trash service. We've received the appeals court's judge's decision, and he's also affirmed the small claims court and ruled in our favor. Just letting council know. I've also spoken to Ms. Janine Hassipin, representative from our insurance, and she's told me that we have insurance coverage now on the big well. The annual premium on that was $1,007, and I thought that was a very decent price for a year's coverage for insurance for our big well. There is one additional coverage that she's following up and checking for us. She showed me the paperwork on a terrorism policy. The requirement on that, or the pay for that, is $38 a year. It's very minimal, but I questioned the paperwork because it said that policy would be in effect until December 31st, 2007, or that type of policy. So Janine's going to follow up and check as to whether we can, in fact, obtain terrorism insurance. The good thing about the terrorism insurance for that small expenditure is if we ever had a clarified or a documented terrorist incident, the government can help pay for repairs or restoration of our building. So it's a minimal expenditure. So if she can confirm that policy is still available to us, then I'll advise council at that time. And as a last note, based on Charter Ordinance 13 and working with our deputy city clerk, the city administrator's appointment of a city clerk can be done at this point simply by requiring Christy to take an oath affirming that that is her title. And that's, as I said, based on Charter Ordinance 13. Christy's still following through and obtaining her required training to be a city clerk, and we've verified that the appointment can happen prior to the full certification. So I'm very pleased to say that we have a city clerk in the city of Greensburg. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Questions or comments for City Administrator? Everyone, welcome. Thank you for attending our meetings and becoming informed, involved, and engaged in everything that's going on in our community, because it is about all of us collaboratively together. Public comment section.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. In a recent article in the newspaper, it gave the yearly income for the Big Well manager. I've had several people come up and ask me, did I know that, whatever. And I said, if it's listed in the newspaper, it's been investigated. But several people asked me what her credentials are, what her education is, and what constitutes $48,000 a year. So I was wondering if there's some place that's written down a job description, what constitutes $48,000 a year? That's my question. So if there's somewhere that it's published or public record, how she got the position, what her credentials are, etc., so that maybe they can be followed up in the newspaper. I've had several questions on that. Not to put anybody down, it's just a fair question to ask, because since it is a public position.
I understand. Our interim city administrator, Mr. Jay Newton, has over 30 years' experience working as a manager in city and county governments. Mr. Newton has done a tremendous amount of research into what a position description can be documented as for each, and he's done that for each one of our city employees. Mr. Newton's also done the research as to what those average salaries are out there for various positions, for example, an electrical lineman or a utilities superintendent or a utilities worker. There are not a tremendous amount of sources out there where you can find what the average tourism director in Kansas makes, for example. So he's relied on similar type management level positions to arrive at what was felt at that time to be an average or an adequate salary for a person in that level of responsibility and management. Now, I think if I remember correctly, and please contact me tomorrow and we can get a better answer, but I think what's being quoted is an upper level of a pay range at $48,000. So with our system of pay raises here in the city, obtaining a 2 to a 3% merit increase annually, it could take several years to reach that upper level, for example.
Okay, so is it an elected position or a hired position?
It's a hired position.
Okay, were there any other applicants besides the current one?
Not to my knowledge.
Was
And
it publicized to be for that position?
I think that was a position that was generated within the city, and city staff could adequately fill it at that time. Now, as to whether a position has to be advertised before it's filled in-house or whether it's advertised actually to solicit applications, I don't believe that you have to do that. For example, if the city were to hire a new administrator and had an adequate person on staff to be able to do that, they wouldn't have to advertise it. So, but that's a good question, good point.
Okay, so what position did she have before that constituted her to be able to just move right into that position?
I don't have the answer to that right now.
She was a
And-
well director.
The what?
Big well director.
Oh, well,
So prior to the
I can speak to myself.
okay.
For myself. As far as the job duties, really, I'm doing the exact same thing as I was.
prior to the tornado.
I did not go through corrections for 8
Okay, so how come?
But prior to this appointment,
it just, I guess the question, several of the questions were directed to me was, how come no one else, I mean, how come we didn't see that there were other people that could have been running for the position or, you know, other job applicants?
So Stacy, is fair to,
Because several of the questions were, well, she's the mayor's daughter.
I
Okay,
can address that real quick. She was hired before I ever ran for mayor.
Exactly.
She was an employee of the city as
Thank
way before
okay.
I ever even filed for mayor,
That answers.
okay?
Stacy, what was your position when Steve?
I was the assistant to the city administrator when I first started
There you
with the
go.
city, and then I was appointed interim Big Well manager when there was a vacancy, and then became Big Well manager full-time after that.
Thank you, that answers the question.
So there was, I understand the perceived impropriety, but
That's right,
the timeline doesn't indicate that.
but you answered my question, and
Okay.
that I can adequately give that information to
Yeah.
who we've asked.
And Stacy, when were you first employed?
When?
Yeah.
September of 2007.
Okay. So none of us were actually here at that time on the council. Rex, were you? Yeah, you were you not?
Yes.
Thank you for the information, appreciate it.
and to close that out, the Big Well manager and the, you know, director of tourism, as well as all the other department heads for the city, they work directly for the city administrator. Okay.
Any other public comments? Council, I would like to say one thing though, in your packet, and I sit on my front porch and I see the parking lot at the Big Well just constantly with people in it. And you can see the revenue indicates that, and I do personally want to thank the staff and Stacy and her employees for what they did to make that happen. And all the other city employees that helped move things from the incubator down to the new well. I think you all have heard nothing but great comments about it.
As we toured that on the Memorial Day weekend, the employees that worked down there were so happy to be in there and just couldn't believe the way the thing had all come together. And they thought it was just fantastic, and they thought it was a joy to be in there and working on it.
I just want to kind of say thank you, I know they're not here, but to the design team, Law Kingdon and Project Explore. Building turned out beautifully also, and Count Gordon for construction. I think it just turned out better than ever could have hoped for, so great facility.
Next on is our consent agenda, which is the minutes of the May 21st, 2012 meeting and appropriations 1881 for your consideration.
I got a question on check number 20704. For the completion of the streetscape contract, what are we paying for now?
I'm sure that's probably just retainage we held back from the contractor pending warranty issues and completion of, you know, making sure it's complete as designed.
So everything works?
Yeah, it just hasn't worked till now apparently.
I think that was the closing on the EDA grant side of it. It wasn't to our contractor. It was to the people who issued our grant money for that project. We finished out our review of it, and we actually are gonna retain, I think, an additional over $200,000 is still coming to us, but we had to do this paperwork to get it. So,
I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Time for items of business. Ed? Item A.
Yes, and you'll see, of course, that Stacy is here, and Dee. I've asked both of them to be here to help me with this item. When Stacy first approached me about the project to reface the Big Well Museum billboard that's located down close to the golf course. And first of all, let me say that we're not asking this evening for the expenditure approval, but I am asking for the contract to be approved, just to make that very clear. During the discussion between Stacy and I, we were talking about the fact that we were paying to reface a billboard that's owned by the chamber. I asked Stacy to recontact them to see if they would be amenable to the idea of having some type of a lease agreement so that when we expend the money to reface the billboard, we have something to at least protect that investment instead of having a better use for it by the chamber 6 months later, and then we have to lose the expenditure to reface it. They were very agreeable to that, no problems whatsoever. So submitted for your consideration is a lease agreement between the city and the chamber to more formalize the arrangement on this billboard. Stacy, anything else to add to that? Okay.
I would move that we accept the agreement for the billboard between the City of Greensburg and Kiowa County Chamber of Commerce.
I still don't understand. We own that billboard, or the chamber owns the billboard?
Chamber owns the billboard.
The chamber's gonna have their sign
No.
on
Included in your packet is, along with that billboard agreement, is a sample of what the billboard would look like.
it. So the city's paying for the chamber ad, more or less.
Well, this is directing visitors to the Big Well Museum and to the Visitor Center.
So who's gonna pay for the,
This refacing is going to be done at tourism expense,
it comes out of their budget, not the city?
out of tourism. So it's still germane to say, we in essence, as a city, tourism is, with our investment, I was somewhat concerned about that expenditure on a billboard we don't own. And clearly we don't own the billboard, but I wanted some agreement in place to protect that refacing of the billboard, to protect that investment. And they're working with us pretty good on that at a no-cost lease to be used, and the phrasing there is to be used as long as the city will keep the sign looking decent, we can continue to use it.
Or the chamber pay it? Chamber signage, chamber pays for the upkeep?
Well, very good question. If the sign were to begin to die, I mean, a leg was, if a vehicle struck it, I imagine it's their sign. They would probably either pay for it or come and negotiate with us.
Can we get some clarification, Stacy, on where is it a vinyl wrap?
I'm on the Big Well budget, not on the street.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. It's still city funding, not chamber.
And the other thing that Mark and I saw is that this says the west of the city's golf course. I believe the city doesn't quite own that, but
Could we just say Cannonball Golf Course rather than the city's golf course? just
Oh,
for
I see.
clarification?
Yes. For clarification,
Yeah.
I apologize.
I think that'd be a good idea, just to cover ourselves on that.
Yes.
Just for a little history on that sign, it was a couple of years before the tornado, and I don't know if Chamber had it erected at that time. I believe they did. They had it erected, and Scott Huckerty painted the signage on it. To my knowledge, there's not been any touch-up on the facing of it. I'm not sure if there's been any repair on the sign itself, but it still seems to be in good shape.
so this is what it's going to look.
I did. Do I need to change my motion with the correction?
Yes, please.
Okay, I would move that we accept the agreement between the Kiowa County Chamber of Commerce and City of Greensburg with the correction that it states Cannonball Golf Course instead of the city golf course.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item B, Ed.
Yes, we're in receipt of a bill. This bill was actually delivered to me by Mick Kendall. Mr. John Yon is requesting that the city consider reimbursing him $528.18 for a plumbing bill at his private residence located at 317 South Olive. Mr. Yon is asking for this reimbursement because of what he perceives is city maintenance on a water leak close to his residence, for which he believes that debris was freed up from the water line and clogged his cold water supply line to his hot water heater. As you'll recall on my agenda comments or agenda memo, I'm asking council for guidance on this. Approaching this issue, I see that the city of Greensburg has a huge responsibility to maintain a water network system. This bill is asking, in essence, that the city pay for plumbing maintenance at a private citizen's residence for which he believes that the city's debris from the water line could have caused a problem that I just am not sure that there's any way to confirm that. And even if debris were freed up on a water leak issue that the city fixed, I'm not quite sure that it's a position we want to be in, because similar things could happen up and down the water line. And to what level are we trying to help each citizen that may or may not come up with a plumbing bill at their residence? So I'm asking for council's guidance on that. It would be my suggestion to continue into the future maintaining our water system, which is a very expensive system to maintain. We absolutely have a responsibility to repair the water leak, to ensure that we're providing the water to citizens' residences and to the businesses in town. I'm not quite so sure that we have the ability to follow up and say with any degree of certainty that the water leak that we repaired caused this level of damage in a private residence. So
This is part of the problem with our old metal water lines. The debris was rust. And every time we work on a water leak, everybody experiences more rust in their, like their screens and their faucet and all that. That's just, remember that water modeling study? That's what they're gonna find.
Ed, was Mr. Yon the only person that you heard from?
yes, he's the only person that's that Mick has heard from, or that I've heard from, or who's offered a bill for reimbursement.
Was this water leak on the main directly in front of his house or down the street from his residence?
All I know is Mick did confirm that it was in close proximity to Mr. Yon's house.
I was always of the understanding anything from the water meter in was a resident's responsibility.
Is there a screen on the meter?
Well, I talked to Mick a little bit about this myself, and he said that he felt like if there was a extreme amount of debris, that probably would have plugged the meter also.
I don't know. I've seen the way they plumbed it. And that is a block where it's all messed up. You got some new line and some old line. I don't know why when we were that close, we didn't make it all new line, but we did. So I could go either way.
There is an issue also of notification. Mr. Yon has spoken to the extent of, if you had told me, then maybe I could have accessed an outside faucet to let it run water, to maybe get rid of some of that debris before it continued on. I'm just not sure that requiring Public Works and Public Utilities to do that type of notification, I think it would be ineffective at best. I think they would reach some folks, and some they couldn't reach even if they had tried. You start digging up a hole to fix a water leak, and that's probably a pretty good notification also that something's going on there. So I don't even know if Mr. Yon was home during that time.
Well, on a personal level, I just had to change out my second faucet in 2.5 years, and we were told the same story by the plumber. So I would hate to think of the can of worms we may be opening up if we accepted this.
I agree.
But it's our fault. We went through it too, so we just put a whole house filter on. And stopped, shouldn't have to, but we did. Most all your houses are plastic now, inside.
Well,
Well, I'd make a motion, we deny the request for the repayment of a bill for Mr. John Young.
Haven't we before, on issues like this, split the difference? You know, where there's been leaks and things like that, underground leaks or,
Has that been past history when you were on the council before?
yeah, that's before tornado. But, you know, because people don't know, especially in a dry year, if you've got a water leak, it might be a month before it shows up at the surface.
We do have, point of order, we do have a motion to deny the request. Now, is there a second?
Second?
It's been moved and second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item C on the conditional use permit for propane facility at Home Lumber. From the, this comes from the Planning Commission. Council, Home Lumber went to the Planning Commission and went through the whole process. And it's there. If you have any questions about it, and this is the recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission. If you have any questions, Christy, Ed, and Jeff's here with Home Lumber too. If you have any questions on that. But again, the Planning Commission reviewed this extensively.
Well, I think I'm a little directionally challenged here with the map and just to actually know where the tank is going. The map is showing a direction of north. So are we talking, is that 54 highway? So it's going to sit just a few feet back from the highway?
Yeah, not just a few feet, I'm not sure how far it is from the highway. It's quite a ways. I didn't put that.
I think north is meant to be at the top. If this is the store, this is your storage shed. Is it south of the lumber yard of the storage shed?
It's gonna be west of the lumber.
I'm confused now too.
Well, see, because I was thinking of
Yeah.
originally what you were just saying, but then when I saw the north,
Well, they should have a store. This fence actually sets back a little ways because we park here a lot of times when we pull in. So this is gonna be
so this actually sits
halfway
back,
back
so,
on the block.
so the store actually comes up.
You know, a lot of times you pull off the highway and you pull in here and park, and this fence just sits back off the.
And it is secured chain link fence, as you see.
Per state fire marshal regulation.
I was gonna say, there's gotta be enough state and federal regulations on this to choke a horse.
That's why I say I'm sure that the planning commission went through every bit of that bits and pieces.
Well, this is a service I don't think we want to leave the community.
Right.
You look at all the recreational vehicles sitting out here, all the people in town that operate forklifts. If I understand it correctly, we're going to have to go to Havlet, right? If we want it. And I think I think over a year's time, there's probably some sales tax dollars involved on that also, that we can keep in the community.
And importantly, the charcoal that goes dry at 10 o'clock Saturday morning.
Well, and then you know who you're going to deal with on that.
Any other questions, council?
I would make a motion that we approve ordinance number 1019, granting a conditional use permit for bulk storage for propane for home lumber.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Ordinance 1019, roll call vote. Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Trummel,
Yes?
Youngman,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion carried. Also on item D from the Planning Commission, they've spent quite, my understanding, they spent a lot of work on temporary permits for single-use recreational on a residential lot for workforce housing. Again, we have Ed, Christie here to answer any of those questions that the Planning Commission has reviewed.
And these are, this will be reviewed on case to case, is that what I see? Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, okay.
So, I don't understand, if I've got one of these things, I can't have it hooked up sitting in my driveway and I own it?
No, you can. You can have it in your driveway. This is if somebody brings in their own RV and wants to start renting your driveway. There's specifics on where they can do that and how they can do that. It's to help allow them to do some of these things that they're not currently allowed to do.
But if my company drives in one, Uncle George shows up, oh, he can be here 7 days and he's gone.
Uncle George is fine.
Says you're 7 days without a permit or requirement.
He doesn't have to have a permit if he comes to visit you.
And that was included at the request of council, and we've spoken to other folks as well, but we don't want a resolution to prevent a visiting relative from being able to stay in their camper at your place for a short term.
Because it didn't, to me, it didn't state that clearly.
It says that he can, a single recreational vehicle is allowed on a residential lot for a period of not more than 7 days without a permit. So if somebody comes and visits you for a week, wants to park their camper on your driveway, go for it.
But they he better be gone or pay a permit
No.
for 7 days.
This is with access to city utilities, right? Isn't that what that
If
says?
they're gonna be here for an extensive period of time, they need to be hooked to city utilities and they'll need a
Right.
permit to park.
This resolution allows for up to a week without permitting by the city, as it's currently phrased. Which seems reasonable to me. I guess we could talk, and if 2 weeks would be more reasonable, we could talk about it. But my reading of the resolution is that if you just have someone coming through and visiting for up to a week, that they don't have to worry about getting a permit, they don't have to worry about availability of utilities. Just that longer stays would be subject to those requirements.
And do we need to change that to 2 weeks or 14 days? That a single recreational vehicle can be allowed? Other than that, looks like if somebody that works for the city don't like Uncle George, they won't get a permit. Which we all might be ready for Uncle George to leave after 7 days.
I guess I don't know what's an appropriate time for, is 1 week not enough? I guess I don't know how long RV stays typically last. But I guess I don't have that big of an opinion one way or the other. I don't think 2 weeks is out of line long. I don't think 1 week is out of line short, so.
People like having that 1 week limit.
They'd rather have 3 days than a week.
So my question, Christie, did the planning commission in their discussion of this discuss the number of days?
What was discussed was that there needs to be a public hearing called to go over their codes for temporary RV parks, and in that discussion, RVs on single lots came up. And it was proposed that we use a resolution to get these in place, because if you go through the planning commission to get this put in the code, we're talking a couple months
Okay.
before this is in place. So they discussed some items that they thought would be helpful for a resolution. They made recommendations, but they didn't take an official action on what.
That answers my question, because my thought process was simply, can we change it, or do we refer it back to the planning commission?
This is directly
You
from
basically said we could change it.
It's directly from you.
Okay. Just want to make sure the proper processes are followed if we need to have it happen that way. Is that clarification, council?
I would like it to say 14 days or 2 weeks.
I would recommend you put a day on it, not weeks. That way it's specific, because
We could even make that subparagraph A, unless you're moving home in 7 days. We could.
Would we get into trouble if we did that, Gordon? Make it say 14 days, except for if they're from Oklahoma, they only get 7.
Rex, was that a motion to
That was a
change that to 14 days and accept the resolution
I
with
make
that
a motion to
correction?
approve resolution 2012-10 with the change that a single recreational vehicle can be allowed for no more than 14 days without a permit or requirement.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Council, next on the agenda, for a little history, for almost over a year, I've been aware of the Center of Innovation in Arlington, Texas, and worked with them and visited numerous times. In February of this year, I received a phone call from Linda Garcia in West Jury, who's the executive director. Encouraged us again to look at the possibility of becoming partners with them to enhance and look at advance things in economic development. In April, they called again and requested that by that time Ed was on board, and asked that if we'd come down and they could visit with us. Ed and I left very, very early, May the 15th in the morning, and drove to Arlington, Texas, and spent the whole afternoon down there visiting with West Jury and Linda Garcia. And Ed has put together a presentation for the council to consider, to give you more information on the Center of Innovation and what that opportunities will offer the city of Greensburg. But again, they approached us, and we've continued to work with them over the last year or so. Ed?
Thank you.
And, excuse me, council, if you want to, you can go sit in the seats down there if this is too much of a...
I apologize. There's 25 slides, so I'll try to get this done fairly quickly. You will notice, I'll point out, this is a copyrighted slide presentation provided to us by the Center for Innovation, so I appreciate your assistance in that. The key concept behind the Center for Innovation is, I will say, assisting agencies in achieving economic sustainability in a globally competitive, knowledge-based, innovation-driven economy. That's a lot of words. And I think some of the key things there are economic sustainability and of course doing it in an innovation-driven economy. Go ahead, Christy, next slide. A little background material on the Center for Innovation. The concept behind the Center for Innovation is they're telling us that research resulting in innovative technology has been the primary driver on economic growth and development. The Center for Innovation and a lot of other terms that you'll hear this evening that have to do with like TechCom and things like that. It's a process that is based on a partnership to help different entities realize economic development through technology and what those technology clusters can do for your local regions. A big part of this is the research institutes that you'll see lists for those different types of agencies shortly. The concept is to use those research centers to help you build your economic development initiatives through commercial applications of what the various labs across our country are designing and building. Go ahead, Christy. Center for Innovation, of course, Wes Jury from the center gave a much better presentation than I'm going to give you this evening, but some of the key facets of what the Center for Innovation is revolving around is something that Wes called deal flow, research that leads to commercializable discoveries. And I think that's the key concept here, figuring out how to take these research lab, these discoveries, and figuring out how to make them have a commercial application. Another major part for the Center of Innovation is providing access to those partners for venture capital organizations. Now, to follow that logical flow there, if you've figured out that you are one of the potential partners who can benefit from a commercializable discovery, the Center for Innovation can actually help different partners with the technical assistance to figure out the licensing and the patenting and how to incorporate the company, finding entrepreneurs who want to stand up that business in your region, and just making that commercializable product a reality. Next slide. This just gives you a little background on the Center for Innovation, and it's been around since 2001. It's a nonprofit. It's national in scope, as well as being able to provide assistance for a regional and even a local, on the local scope. The Center for Innovation, one of the exciting things about it is about the center is it provides that collaborative environment between the federal government research labs and education and the industry. Go ahead, Christy. This is going to just inform you of some of the center's strategic goals. And as we saw that deal flow earlier, one of their primary goals is to create that deal flow and assisting with that technological transfer from the lab into a commercializable product. And of course, doing that while assisting with venture capital. Go ahead, Christy. The primary point on this slide is to show you where that network is. It's federal labs, it's universities, and industry. And I think where we weigh in right there is industry. We're looking to benefit from some of the research in the labs to be able to bring in new economic development initiatives through those commercializable products. Go ahead, Kristen. The goal number 2 for the Center for Innovation serves as a catalyst for a strong regional venture capital industry. I think the goal is where we would benefit as a partner in this program is to allow CFI to work with us as a partner, showing us the network of where all these venture capitalists are located, helping us get our businesses stood up, making us aware of and assisting in a grant process. Go ahead. Public education, higher education, and workforce systems. The Center for Innovation is also about working through the, like it says, the MBA programs, the Masters of Business, through educational partnerships, and working through the workforce boards to actually help an area or a region increase or to realize the potential of a stronger workforce. Go ahead. TechCom is one of the primary facets underneath that umbrella of the Center for Innovation. If I could, I'll read you just a little bit about TechCom. TechCom is a public-private partnership focused on the development and commercialization of emerging technologies to solve pressing national needs, create jobs, and stimulate economic growth. TechCom represents a coalition of government agencies and their federal labs, as well as industry, academic, corporate, and venture capital partners. TechCom provides the platform for connecting partners to the appropriate federal agencies, labs, and end users, fostering a bridge between federal resources and state support, and enabling technological transfer and commercialization. One of the other factors underneath the TechCom umbrella, for example, it assists with startup companies and industry expansion. TechCom assists associations and organizations engaged in economic development to identify technologies that can be utilized as the basis for startup companies within their region, or technologies that can be utilized by one of their primary industry clusters to further their own economic development goals and mission within their region. Next slide. I'm sorry, I didn't really talk about the other one, but really the key thing here is the Partnership Intermediary Authority. Congressional authorization provides authority for all of those federal labs to release their research findings to industry to help drive economic development throughout the United States. TechCom was established in 2010, and kind of as it says there, it's premised on the belief that economic sustainability is dependent on the ability to foster that collaboration among the various network partners. The key on number one there is to facilitate access to those federal labs. And if I may, I'll relay a story that Wes had talked about a little bit. If you had a startup company here, for example, that did machine work or something like that, there's technologies available in the labs that the federal government needs, but it's not cost effective for them to set up their own industry to build those things. Well, the small machine shop out here can potentially have millions of dollars in federal contracts to make the parts that the government needs. It's just not cost effective for them to do. So it's a good deal for the federal labs, and it's a great deal for us. Okay, next slide. This just gives you an idea of kind of what that network is about through the Center for Innovation and TechCom, representing various types of labs and research institutes. Next slide. And some federal agencies that are already associated as partners in this Center for Innovation. 272 labs, $100 billion annually on research, access to 100,000 scientists, 20,000 patented technologies. So the federal government's already done the tough part in some regards by patenting these ideas and having them ready to go out into the industry. Next. This just kind of a snapshot of where CFI is, the Center for Innovation is currently. executed some of the federal agency contracts. The number 2 bullet there is an exciting one for me. The concept behind the Center for Innovation is they are limiting themselves to only 40 partners. And as of, I think this slide was put together May 15th, as of May 15th, there are 22 of those 40. And I have to tell you that after hearing about the national level of a partnership of this degree, I mean, it's somewhat exciting for Greensburg to be considered as a serious partner in that network. Okay, go ahead. And again, to provide a national network of affiliated partners, with each partner serving as a conduit to greater numbers. I think Greensburg can be a solid player in their network, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. These are some of the benefits behind what TechCom can do for a partner. Engage us in the design and development of the model. Identify industry technology gaps that can be met through patent license agreements. If we have technology companies that are here or going to arrive, and we're talking to many businesses, we have been, we're going to continue to do that. I'm hoping that as an end benefit of this program, that one of those companies who stand up in Greensburg can also be a solid player in our partnership to maybe have access to increased patented ideas or research ideas from the federal labs. Go ahead. Okay, and instead of just federal labs, this also tells you that there's universities out there who are also coming up with their own patented ideas. The university is one of the key players on this network. Go ahead. There again, enhancing the flow of federal technologies to small and expanding businesses. I think as we begin to grow, that's what our target audience is going to be, is the small and expanding businesses. Go ahead. And this talks about the venture capital access that a partner would have as well. Being an integral part of that network is that venture capital industry. Someone may have a great idea, but won't have the capital to make that dream a reality, whether they're building here or anywhere else. This provides a very strong access to that venture capital. Go ahead. This is a really cool slide that I read up on today because it kind of threw me again. And I know it talks about the network again and that partnership. This is a federal agencies, industry, and university. An interesting part of what the Center for Innovation also allows, and TechCom allows, is access to a web portal where you as a partner can directly search for some of the research labs output. I mean, what types of patented ideas are they coming up with? I know the other slide talked about 20,000 patented ideas, but what can help us in our local area? So this web portal, kind of assisted by the Center for Innovation staff, we would be able to directly go out there and look for ideas that will bring economic prosperity to our area. Go ahead. This is just a list of some of the corporate, educational, venture capital, economic development partners as I said, as of May 15th. Very interesting list, and I think from what I understand, Greensburg has already dealt with several of those Center for Innovation partners. Go ahead. And the last one. I guess the key thought is, I mean, change is exciting no matter which way it's going, but it's even better when you're leading change. I think that's the last slide if you want to saved your neck, Council. I apologize. I should have went too quick, right? When we had our visit with the Center for Innovation staff, Wes and Linda, it was a very interesting presentation. And a really interesting part of that was, I heard personally a lot of interesting stuff that it was exciting to hear it, but I've had a couple of weeks now to kind of let that stew, to kind of think through it, to get on the web and look up some of this interesting stuff. So initially excited about it, and after having a chance to sit back and ponder it and to get on the internet and look for some corroborating information, not that I felt I needed that, because every one of those partners is a well-known agency in their own right. But initial motivation has turned into solid motivation. I think this is going to be a really good potential economic development initiative for here in Greensburg. And I know we're partnered at this point with Economic Development Board that's doing great things, but I think this is an opportunity to be able to reach out on a national level almost immediately to attempt to have a major impact on our economic development initiatives. At the end of our presentation that we received from Wes and Linda in Arlington, we had the opportunity for the mayor to give them a Greensburg presentation. And I believed I saw an immediate change in their attitude. They began taking a lot of notes. They asked some very discerning questions. And I think the concept of Greensburg presenting our story to them, I think motivated them a lot. My initial concept was, what do we have as a small town to contribute to something of that scope? And having thought about that for the past 2 weeks, we're, of course, again, the world's living laboratory. We have worldwide recognition, and I think something in our story and something in the fact that we do have that recognition, I think makes us a very attractive partner for the Center for Innovation. And that completes my presentation.
So Ed, what exactly are you seeing as the potential benefit here? Is this a way to get some industry in the industrial park? Is that the quickest link here, or what are your thoughts?
My thoughts run towards the fact that it could be even bigger than that. I think, and I have no way of knowing absolutely at this point, but I think if we thought of this as an economic development initiative and only pictured the business park, I think we'd be selling ourselves short. I think this is much greater in scope than our business park. Now, I believe certainly that will be the first push potentially, but I think it's bigger in scope than that. With all of the technologies that are out there and the connection to those national players, I think is something that we would be remiss if we didn't consider very, very closely. The partnership, to have the opportunity to take an active role in this partnership, it does have a $25,000 initial investment. But I think for the return on that investment, I think we'll see things that may surprise us very much within the next year.
So would we be seeing a contract in front of the council when you say 25,000 initial? I mean, what does that get us, and how far does that get us, and when does the next 25 have to be brought into the?
Define initial.
25,000 would be for approximately a year, and I believe from my brief on this program that we're looking at probably a 3-year evolution. They're not asking you for any additional money other than that first year of 25,000. Now, reminding council, of course, that we spend more than that on very big companies, very big government agencies, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Defense. I'll read, and this is a DoD booklet, and TechCom is only one facet of that, and primarily what I'm speaking about today is TechCom, but as another DoD or a government program, this is called Springboard, and it's the Department of Defense entering into a business relationship with Juneau, Alaska, and it's the only town that the Department of Defense works with in that particular capacity, but they're targeting Juneau by itself for this particular type of program, whereas TechCom is national. It's the Center for Innovation and their staff reaching out to any company that's in the nation. If they happen, and it would be tailored. We have a culture here that they would want to tailor that company to fit that culture and what we have going on in this region. It wouldn't be simply reaching out and getting us a Ford factory or something like that. It would be tailored to our interests and our culture. But it does have a cost associated with an economic development initiative of this scope.
One of the key terms, council, is intermediary authority. Center of Innovation has been approved by the government as an intermediary authority. And the question I had was, how come we just can't go as local to these companies and do it because we don't have access to it? And as you look down the list, we've dealt with Siemens, we've dealt with, in some of these processes, Lockheed Martin. There's several on the list we've been in contact with. This allows us to really get in contact with them, not just talking to the secretary or somebody that may or may not pass the information on. Ed and I both investigated this. We've talked with Enid, Oklahoma, who became a member of the Enid Regional Development Alliance, and talked to Brent Kissling and asked him some very pointed questions about the process. And they're reaping rewards right now of interest in Enid through Vance Air Force Base, through biomass, through all kinds of initiatives that are out there. This puts us at the level to enhance our local economic development efforts and to really enhance that and supplement that to where we work three-legged stool hand in hand with this. But they contacted us because of Greensburg. And it's about asset-based sustainable development. It's not about government handouts or government grants. This is development of public-private partnerships to develop actual sustainable businesses in Greensburg and Kiowa County in our region. And that's the focus that I think needs to be brought out more than anything is it's taking all these 20,000 or better patents that the government has and be able to have an innovative process to get those validated and to the marketplace through Greensburg in this living laboratory.
So Ed, you said that they were looking for 40 partners and they have 22 at this point. How long has it taken them to get the 22 that they have? Have they been just recently seeking these partners, or has this been since 2001, I think was when you said it?
2001, I think, is when it stood up. Most of their forward momentum to actually lock these partners in have been within the last 2 to 3 years. And they're being very selective, very slow. They want to make sure that they have the right partnership. And it's my understanding they're excited about what Greensburg has to offer. Now, they're not approaching scores of small cities. I think we do stand out in that regard because of what we mean to the world in terms of sustainability, in terms of refusing to give up. I think they haven't approached Joplin. That's my hometown, and they went through some tough are approaching Greensburg. They're quite interested in what we have to offer.
And do we have some literature that you could get to us so we could have a little information to read through
And speaking of that, Erica, as you mentioned, Bob, there are some municipalities that are current partners, such as Enid, look like Arlington, Texas, the city of Arlington is. Maybe just get some feedback from those governments, and just to see again some specifics of what their partnerships with this venture have yielded them, just to give us a better idea of kind of what we can expect if and when we decide to move forward in the partnership for Greensburg.
And to answer your question, Eric, earlier, I jotted it down, there would be an official contract. Well, I mean, there'd be official paperwork. Where, I guess basically, we want to make the presentation and just, I personally feel this is a tremendous opportunity to continue to supplement and enhance the economic development efforts that are being done at the current time and work together with that.
Another follow-up question I guess I would have is what's the time frame for this agreement? You mentioned it looks like it's kind of on an annual basis. Would it run calendar year to calendar year, or from when we sign it for a year from that date? Or is that just to be determined as we work through the details of the contract?
So far, I think they've demonstrated a desire to work with us in whatever that regard is. So if we were to have the contract approved with them, that would run for a year, and it wouldn't.
Well, and kind of a follow-up why I asked that question is, as you point out, we do budget for economic development every year. However, we haven't budgeted for this specific expenditure, and we just, would we be able to afford it if we wanted to go ahead and sign on the dotted line this year, or is that something we need to be thinking about budgeting when we talk about our 2013 budget?
It's an excellent point, and it's something that I would, should council approve this, I would make sure that we're including that in budget requests that we'll put before council in the budget process. But certainly, I understand the concern about expenditures, especially when they're not budgeted. So it will be included with council's permission, consent eventually for the next year's budget. But in this particular process, I visited with Pam Reeves at length, and we have the available funds to take part in this partnership.
Do you think that 25,000 will change to be more or less on a year-to-year basis, or?
It's my understanding it's going to stay exactly the same. It will not increase. And in fact, just to pass along the information as it was relayed to me, it's not so much a partnership expenditure to drive funding for that particular purpose. I think it's to gauge interest at a certain point. To keep those who are just, I guess, to keep those out who've been asked and they don't have any interest in spending any money or anything of that sort.
CFI is a nonprofit organization, so they're required within the framework that this covers their expenses of assisting us and their whole staff of 23 economic development people who work hand in hand with the local partnerships. The one thing, Erica, you asked about information, if you'll go on centerofinnovation.com, this whole presentation, Linda Garcia informed me today, because I called her to find out if it was copyrighted or not, but we couldn't share. And she says just direct people to the website. We update the presentation constantly. And then if you have specific questions, you can talk to Ed or I, or we'll have them send us packets. But it is on their website.
should we be working with our city or county chamber of commerce if this gets any deeper? We don't want to step on their toes.
Well, and kind of as I alluded to before, I don't think this steps on their toes at all. They have certain initiatives that they're pursuing here. This provides that national access, and I'm not with a lot of partners out there that we just don't have access to from our local economic development board. Wonderful things that economic development board's doing. This just provides a different level.
Questions, council? Will that be on the next meeting's agenda, Ed, then, for,
Yes.
okay, consideration?
Thank you.
Okay. Please, council, talk to Ed at any time about this. Go to their website. He'll be in contact with Wes and Linda and Sheriff. And they both apologize that they couldn't make the meeting tonight to make this presentation. And basically, this was a 3-hour presentation to Ed and I that you got in 15 minutes. And the opportunity for, again, us to say who we are and sell us. And they are excited, and my phone's been ringing off the wall all weekend because they knew we had a council meeting tonight and they're ready to get moving. Now, that's no pressure on you. I'm just telling you, they are excited about the city of Greensburg and what opportunities that has to offer. So anyway, we'll get you information and as you desire, and we'll put that on next meeting's agenda. Item F. Ed?
This is asking the council to consider approval of Resolution 2012-11, adopting and establishing the Personnel Policies Manual or Personnel Policy Handbook for the City of Greensburg. This is the second portion of the work conducted by Mr. Newton, Jay Newton. Last council meeting, council approved the position classification and pay plan. This is the Personnel Policy Handbook portion of that. Staff has gone through this extensively. The bulk of this material is duplicated from previous manuals, but it's been necessarily updated. HR rules and laws change annually, and Mr. Newton is very knowledgeable about that process. There are key topics that have been included in here that needed to be updated. Effective or appropriate use of sick time, and an interesting section that talks about whether employees can carry weapons while they're on duty. Just really necessary material in the book, and I'm glad to see that Mr. Newton has provided us with a very effective document.
Also, council, on that resolution on your desk when you arrive is an updated version of that after review of it, and with our city attorney. There was one phrase that needed to be changed. So it was in the first paragraph. There's deletion after that says are in conflict with these policies. It's just, this is it. Gordon, did you have any input on that?
I need more on whether it left a doubt for us whether or not there was anything left from the old ones and the ideas are starting to completely new.
This way, the new resolution that you have on your desk just is very clear that way. It starts from new upon adoption, if that's what you so choose.
And Ed, will each of the city employees receive a copy of the handbook?
Yes, I've spoken to Ms. Pam today about that process. We're going to reproduce the manual, put it into folders for them, and provide it electronically for those staff who want or need it on a laptop.
Only question I have is that there are a number of appendices referenced in the handbook. They're in the end, but they're blank. I don't like the lockout, tagout procedures. I don't know if those, we have documentation that should be there, but they're referenced in the appendix. They're there, it's just, it's a blank page.
Excellent point. These are documents that have been in use by the city, previously approved as required. I just haven't put them in there yet.
So do those need to be implemented in there before this adoption is considered, this resolution?
I would think so.
Actual lockout, tagout policies, hazardous communication policies, bloodborne pathogen. I know we have all that stuff.
Yes,
Should
but
it be in this manual before we?
yes, Mr. Mayor, because you are incorporating those by reference, so you would need to include those as well in a motion. I apologize for not having that in your electronic copy. I will forward an electronic copy to each one of you, but they are documents that have been previously in effect or approved by council.
So are we tabling this and pending the attachment of those appendices, sounds like, or?
Council's decision. It doesn't substantively change what you're approving here.
I'm comfortable approving it now.
Okay, I was going to suggest if you were not, then I would certainly put that with your material before you did.
I just wanted to make sure we did have those in place if they are referenced in the policy manual, so. Good enough for me.
And council, this is part of why this process, I think you all agreed too, is we need to have a consolidated policy book so we don't have 3 or 4 different things running around, so each employee and administrator knows exactly where it's at and
I move we adopt this policy handbook, personnel policy handbook, with the appendix, yeah, that word, that we have already approved. Is that what I needed to say? Yeah, okay, I'm adopting the resolution 2012-11.
Second.
been moved and seconded to adopt resolution 2012-11 with the addition of the existing policies in the appendix. Any other discussion, Ed?
I'd just like to say that I'll feel much better if I do route you a copy of the appendices. So if council's okay with that, I'll plan on doing that.
Other discussion? We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Ed, item 4G.
I've received a letter from our municipal judge, the Honorable Ann Dixon, and as you'll notice on your letter, council, that letter is addressed to you as well, notifying us that Ms. Dixon is, Judge Dixon is retiring or resigning from her judge's position here for the municipal court. I'd just like to be on record as stating that, you know, I appreciate her years of service, even though I wasn't here. It's the judge's decision to submit that letter of resignation, however. And to follow up in that, I'm going to be working closely with the mayor to do my part to help determine who our future judge will be, and reminding council that it is the judge is a mayoral appointment by our ordinance, and I'll keep council informed of what that process is turning out to be.
City Attorney report.
And nothing to report.
Executive session, counselor or administration?
Yes, I think 15 minutes probably.
Sorry, I'm late.
Oh, that's okay. Georgina, public
I
comment.
just wanted to personally thank you guys for allowing us to do our arts and craft last weekend. I appreciate all the help that I got from Bob and from Sandy, and I appreciated everything the city did to accommodate all our vendors. It turned out really good. We had 77, 68 showed up. Some backed up, so I appreciated everything you guys did to help make that a good weekend for everybody.
Well, as I said earlier, Georgina, make sure everybody thanks Georgina for all her hard work and all the volunteers that helped out.
And we already have vendors that have already signed up for next year and have already booked their rooms, so I guess they're doing well.
It was a fun day, even though it was windy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Georgina, for all your hard work and all the people that helped you out. How long, Gordon and Ed, do you anticipate?
15 minutes, Trevor?
I think so.
Did we need to make an official acceptance of that?
Point of order, do we need to have an official acceptance of the letter of resignation?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Take action, accept it.
Okay, we
No,
do.
just have on the record what's happening.
Okay,
I don't think you can make her be the judge. You or anybody else on the council.
I would make a motion that we regretfully accept the letter of resignation from the Honorable Ann Dixon as our municipal judge.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. City Attorney Administration has requested 15-minute executive session for attorney-client privilege.
Well, I move we go into executive session for attorney-client until 7:40.
Second.
All those in favor, aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We're back in open session. Is there anything else to come before us this evening?
Can I ask a question of our attorney?
Mm-hmm.
On city ordinances on the mowing, okay, if he could get a certified letter and the landowner mows it, but the city can still come back anytime and mow it as they see fit, without proof. Your word against mine that it's a violation of code.
Well, I probably have to have more information to be able to give you an opinion, and I'd have to read the code again. It's been a long time since I've read the weed code, since the days when we were doing that earlier on. I know staff has been working on some of those, giving notices, but it hasn't, none of them has come through to me.
But that's all I want to know, if they got to show proof that it did mow, that it was violation of code. They had to show proof that it was violation of code.
Well, yeah, but you always have to prove what you're playing legally, and the question is, what level of proof do you need? You know, what is proof?
So if it goes to court, would we have to show proof that it was a violation of code?
If somebody challenged that as an issue,
Yes.
that says you can't do that because you didn't mow it, somebody had to get on the stand and say, You didn't know that, and so you.
No, they did mow it. But they don't have to notify the landowner after that certified
talking-
letter's been
Oh,
served.
no, the initial one, yeah, that's true, that stays. in
After
effect.
that, after that, the landowner got the certified letter, he mowed.
Oh.
And then the city come in later and mowed again.
Oh.
Does the city have to show proof if it goes to court?
You know, does the city acknowledge that they mowed it and they?
Yep,
It has
yep.
already been mowed?
Yep.
Did you get it mowed within the notice time? Or after the notice
I
time?
don't know, the landowner did mow it.
Well, I know that, and if he mowed it after the deadline, and it was that way after the deadline, then that might be a different result.
I don't know.
They get a certain period of time to cure the problem, and if they didn't cure the problem within that time, then the city could put into actions what they do, which means it might take a little while, but somebody said, we checked it on that date, that deadline date, they didn't get it mowed.
It was mowed. It was mowed.
Well, then, when you're saying that you do know that he mowed it ahead of time.
Rex, are you saying that basically the city unnecessarily mowed a lot?
Yes.
That it had
I'm
already
not saying that it didn't need mowed, I'm saying that they got to prove that it was in violation of the ordinance. If it goes to court.
Yeah, I mean, we are the ones making the claims, so we're the ones that have the burden of proof, yes. Now, I don't know enough about the facts to know whether we could prove it in this particular case you're talking about. But the city always has the burden of proof to say that they're going forward in the correct way.
They have to show proof.
Yeah.
Well,
But if they do, that can be done by their own testimony, that says, yeah, this is what we did. And then then the burden shifts to the other side and says, no, you didn't. And what proof do you have that we didn't? So, I mean, that's the thing, is burdens of proof go back and forth. Somebody starts out having the burden of proof of proving their claim, and if they present evidence in support of that claim, then it's the other side that has the job of either showing that that proof is incorrect, or that there's other alternate explanations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. See, I would guess that any court would get here's any reasonable amount of proof is going to find that absent contrary evidence is going to find that the claiming party presented proof, sufficient proof. It's more probable, it's not beyond reasonable doubt, it's not from the case, it's more probably true than not. Is it more likely that this happened or didn't happen? And if the court, it's the scales are balanced, and it tips a little bit enough in your favor, then you win. It's not like you had to have pictures of here's Joe mowing and the camera is showing this on this picture. You know, that's not the kind of proof that's required. It's somebody signing an affidavit or whatever saying I was there that day and I mowed it. Now whether was enough of a condition that it should have been mowed or what, I don't know about that. So that's what I'm looking at the ordinance. I don't know how many days it is. How many days to get? 10 days to get in there and get it done. So it's possible he did, but then it's also possible that when they got around to mowing it, 30 days afterwards, it looked like it still needed mowed.
What about when the city mows it and the next day it looks like it still needs mowing?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
we need to go through that bad areas. That is the most ambiguous ordinance we've got.
Well,
Period.
And unfortunately, that ordinance and, the ones on the hazardous properties, et cetera, principally written off of state statute.
Everybody here is a violation, period.
Yeah, and so it's a little bit confining, because then if you get out, if you're doing it under state statute, then you're doing it with statutory authority of the legislature that you're doing these things. If you get out of it, then you're sort of on your own. So I admit those statutes are kind of screwed up. Some of them really are screwed up. Ones when you start really trying to take people's property down or whatever, it can get really kind of a real hassle.
Did any of those statutes that you're aware of, Gordon, take place, did any of those statutes, were they implemented, new, adjusted after the tornado, or had they been in effect prior to the, in the code books? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that group statute's been in effect for a long, long time. And most cities have codes predicated on.
And I'm gonna disagree with Councilman Rex that there are ambiguity in that.
Oh, yeah, there's,
You're gonna disagree?
No, I said I agree with you,
Yeah.
they're ambiguous.
Flower beds, any tree less than 1.5 inches is considered a sapling and you mow it. Well, Lord knows how many thousands of trees been planted in this town last 5 years? There's no provisions at all for any landscaping.
well, there's nothing to prevent, any one of you, if you want to, go through those codes and say, I think we should change this or that or the other, and we can look at it and see whether it would be appropriate to do that.
Well, and I think this is where Rex, to visit with Ed and Gordon on that, and
Those codes are why we had such a hard time getting done some of the things we did get done with Cold Glacier and some of the others, because you've got to go through all those steps, and it can challenge you along the way. It's just a real pain. But the due process, the taking of property has to be done due process rights. So you have to comply with that. If you comply with that, then you're in good shape when you go to the public court. And somebody argues, well, you didn't give me my due process rights. Well, we did this, 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 and this, and this. It's been done 100,000 times in the state of Kansas because of statutes. You're going to be upheld. If you start changing it, then you're going to be litigating a new set of rules that nobody else has looked at before. That's why everybody stays comfortable by staying with the same old statutes, even though they're crummy.
I'd be more than willing to go through this particular situation and city ordinance or anything else. I mean, any council member that wants to deeply examine an ordinance, we can certainly do that. I mean, we want those ordinances to be the best we can make them.
And sometimes it's implementation. I mean, a question like that, those are easily resolved if you have good records about when did it send, when was it sent, when was the deadline, is it documented when you checked, was the condition documented again when you did it, was it documented that when you did it, when you actually got it done, and then you have all that evidence. And maybe we do, I don't know about that end of that process. Certainly wouldn't hurt to keep track of that.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of the notice. But I mean, I don't know how much paperwork that take. You guys know, 2 or 3 years ago, it took a lot of paperwork, because there are a lot of places like that you guys have to take care of. It's maybe not quite so bad now. But, I don't know. How many notices do you send out on weeds or mowing?
I don't send it out anymore.
Who does it?
Selena does the letter, Mike Hayes does the monitoring.
Mike?
I know the first round there was well over 100.
100?
Well over the first round.
Administratively, then that's such.
And they have a spreadsheet, they keep track of who they've sent to and
Yeah.
when.
So, I don't know what the city's proof would be, Rich, so whether I agree or disagree whether or not they have it in now or not.
But when you were saying, can I just ask a question? So if I took a picture of my lot and it was not mowed and my camera would show my date on it, and then I took a picture of my lot right after I finished mowing, that would not be even as proof that I had taken care of it before the due date?
No, it would be.
It would be.
Your own individual testimony could be proof of it if it was not challenged. You could say, I got it, I mowed it. Somebody would be, they'd be ahead of the game to notify the city that I mowed it,
Mm-hmm.
so they know, so that you don't get into these issues like that.
But wouldn't the city be ahead of the game to take a picture of it?
No, I don't know that the city has time for, keeping track of all that stuff. It's not a criminal investigation, it's.
To what level of evidence do you need to prove the integrity of an employee you hired to do a particular job? But I'm looking into that as a function through my office to deal with public works staff, to document it as best we can. This is, I understand, as a new administrator, this topic comes up every year about weed notice time. And it is a topic that's that's a sore spot for many folks, especially if you have not followed through on that weed notice and cut the lawn in the required time frame. You can cut that grass for $10 or $15 in gas maybe, or less, and it's certainly cheaper than the city's fee for doing the same thing for you. So it's a matter of timing, and we do provide the service to anyone who calls in from out of state. I have this weed notice. We provide phone numbers for area residents who are interested in mowing that lawn for them. So we're trying to prevent the Public Works crew from just having to run out and cut more lawns than they're comfortable cutting. They would prefer to not be on private property, but our ordinance calls for that process to help make our community look better.
Yeah, it is easy to document now, 10 years ago, you look at a camera with a roll of film in it and all that development, all that kind of stuff. But now it's so easy, you can keep a whole lot of pictures and records, even send them electronically. Somebody can take a picture of their cell phone and send it to the computer there back in the city, to keep track of it. So it might be something you think about doing, so we avoid some of that. Some of that is those issues.
Anything else to come before us? Council, I inform you, Council President and I visited the other day, and at our next meeting 2 weeks from tonight, Mark will be running the meeting in February. The Alabama State Disaster Recovery Coordinator invited me down there for a presentation, and it was part of the same group that came out here on one of the peer-to-peer. And Matt, I know you and Christy were in the basement in your office in the courthouse when Rocky and can't remember her name, were down there. And so that's where I'll be in the next meeting. And Mark, I thank you for running the meeting. And as this has been clarified before through our city attorney, even though Mark serves as running the meeting, that does not take away his vote from any action, because he's still a council member.
And that's what date?
That's the 18th.
Okay. If I'm gone, is that gone? Also?
No, there would still be a quorum
Okay.
before.
Okay. Or maybe, I don't know.
Okay. Anything else to come before us? I just wanted you all to know that, so what was going on. If there's nothing else to come before us, meeting adjourned.